Why, hello everyone. As you may have already seen, I'm wearing a rabbit fur hat, and I have a ridiculously large mustache. Both of these things are a consequence of the North and what it has done to me. There's also something you should know, which is that I've been watching a lot of film on the South in the Civil War. And it's given me this kind of accent, so to speak, where I like to mimic and imitate Stonewall Jackson. So this will crop up inevitably throughout the video. Know, my northern friends, that I am true and through blue Union North. But I do have a tendency to lapse into some sort of terrible southern accent. So anyway, I want to talk to you about two cool people today. One is Jesus, and the other is Aragorn. And both are kings. Now, typically when you hear Lord of the Rings and people talk about like Catholic themes in it, they may say something in the effect of Jesus is represented as priest, prophet, and king. And there are three people in the books who represent this well. So you have Frodo representing the priest, he's taking on the sins of people, making the sacrifice. He's basically sacrificing his life for the quest, taking on evil itself. You have Gandalf, who is the prophet, who comes and says there's doom coming, but let's do something about it. And then you have Aragorn, who is a king, and I don't need to explain how he's a king. Alright, but J.R.R. Tolkien does not like allegory, and he would never say that Aragorn or Gandalf or Frodo is a stand-in for Jesus. He would say Aragorn is Aragorn. Now, what he would say is that there's something called applicability, which means that there are aspects of Aragorn that do apply to Christ, and perhaps vice versa. So I would like to kind of look through those today and just talk about them a little bit, because I just finished reading some of the appendices. And we'll start most appropriately at the beginning. And first thing is that both have ancestry that is traceable to the beginning. So the first men and elves that come in Middle-earth, they're made by Eru, which is like the god who creates the entire universe and creates kind of all the heavenly beings. And they're kind of discovered on Middle-earth. And Aragorn is going to come from the descendants of Beren and Luthien. So basically the coming together of mankind and elvenkind. And everyone knows who Elrond is, but you might not know who Elros is, which was Elrond's brother. And both of them are considered elven, being under Beren and Luthien from their line. And they were given a choice whether or not they wished to be man or elf. And being an elf, you get to go back to the Undying Lands, and you get to live forever. Being a man, you get the gift of mortality, the gift of death. And Elros he chose to be man. He becomes the great king of Númenor, and he's gifted with long life. And Aragorn is descended from that line. So Elrond is like his great uncle. All right, so that's where he comes from. Jesus is descended in Matthew's gospel, in the genealogy, we hear that Jesus comes from Abraham. There's 3 different sections of 14 generations, but that Jesus is traced all the way back, so to the very beginning. And then in the same way, in Luke's gospel, Jesus is traced all the way back to Adam. So you get this very cool kind of sense from both of them that Jesus is descended from this great line of the fathers of Judaism and Christianity, the patriarchs, and then also that Jesus comes from Adam, the first man. So Aragorn also is coming essentially from the first men and elves who were on Middle-earth. Both are from the boondocks, all right? So Jesus comes from Nazareth, and here's what my boy Nathaniel in the Gospel of John has to say. And it's in 1:46, John 1:46. He says, what good can come from Nazareth? And then you have, people talking about Aragorn, and they're like, who's this Strider dude? Like, he's dirty, he's ugly, he's he's living out with animals in the woods. Like, why isn't he settled down? And he basically spends his time out in the wild. All right? Both of them have their fathers die young. Joseph, according to tradition, dies sometime when Jesus is young. When specifically? Well, I don't know. And nor do we. But he's not there at the cross with Mary when he dies. So Joseph had died at some point earlier. And for excuse me, for Aragorn, his father dies when he's 2. Arathorn, he gets shot through the eye with an arrow. I mean, that's crazy, right? And so he and Jesus also make a journey when they're young. So Aragorn, when his father has died, he goes with his mother, Gilran, and they go to Rivendell, where Elrond becomes his adopted father, and Elrond loved him like a son. Jesus, his foster father is Joseph. You know, Joseph is not his biological father. God is his biological father. And Jesus gets that Davidic line and that inheritance through Joseph. All right. Now they also have this thing coming off of that. I should finish. They flee to safety. So in Matthew's gospel, Jesus flees to Egypt because Herod is coming to kill all of the young sons. Now, because of their birth, there's something kind of special about both of them, and both have this sort of dual makeup. And with Jesus, we call it nature. So Aragorn is part elven and part human. So he has this kind of long life that's been given to him as a descendant of the Númenóreans. He's in the line of Elendil, so he's got that. And he also has this kind of foresight, this kind of prophetic sort of knowledge. He has an idea of things that might pass, things that might come. And he's been given kind of some of this wisdom being raised by Elrond and the elves. Jesus has a dual nature. He is both fully human and fully God. So fully human, he comes from Mary, the mother of God, you know, and that's not to say that Mary is the mother of like God the Father, but she's the mother of Jesus. So Christ himself is born in the flesh, the incarnation. So, but at the same time, his father is God, so he's also fully divine. So he's got these two natures going on. And Aragorn, in a different but similar way, has these kind of dual, what I'll call makeups. All right, both of them come from a broken line. Aragorn, the line of Elendil, broken. Isildur messed it up, took the ring, blew it. All right. I think Aragorn is actually from Isildur's brother, like Anarion. He comes from that side. Anarion was in the south, and Isildur was in charge of the kingdom in the north. But he's descended from Elendil. So, and he's the last of his line. And he's going to restore the reunited kingdom of the north and south. And Jesus, he's coming from the broken line of David. So when you have the different exiles in Jewish history, the Davidic kings, you know, they'd kind of fallen into corruption and had been exiled. Both wander in nature. So I mentioned this slightly before, but Aragorn, when he's 20, he's told by, I mean, imagine this bomb being dropped on you. Aragorn is told, and you know, given that he had some foresight, he probably knew it was coming, but when he's 20, Elrond drops the bomb and says, hey, you're supposed to be the heir of Elendil. Yeah, okay. So you're supposed to be basically king of all of the Western world. And Aragorn basically has to do all of his preparation for that, and what we see in the movie and book Lord of the Rings, out in the wild. I mean, he lives as a ranger, he becomes chieftain of the Dunedain, and he's out there searching for Gollum. He's out there fighting Umbar, which is south of Belfalas and Gondor. He fights with Gondor and Rohan, with basically the father of Denethor. So that's the time of preparation for him where he's learning all these different skills that are going to aid him. Jesus goes out into the desert. He's baptized, and then he goes out into the desert to prepare himself, where he's challenged by Satan. So both of them have this wilderness experience that prepares them, right? Both are tested and succeed. So Aragorn, in the movie, he's haunted by Isildur's poor choice. Proper planning prevents poor performance, all right? Isildur, next time, know that. So he's haunted by this in the movie. It's not really haunted by it in the book at all. I'm not really sure why they played up that angle. I guess it was more dramatic. But, you know, for Aragorn, he is going to conquer what Isildur could not, which is he's not going to be tempted by the ring. He's not going to take it, and he's going to work towards its destruction by aiding Frodo best he can. Jesus is going to conquer evil and death in a far more profound way. I mean, he conquers basically one of the greatest evils, which is death, and through his resurrection. So where Adam failed, Jesus is going to succeed. Where Adam was disobedient in the beginning, Jesus is going to make it right. Both have many names. These are some of the names for Aragorn. And the name Aragorn means revered king. But he's got the name Elisar, Elfstone, Estel, which is given to him in Rivendell. It means hope. Thorongil, that's his name when he is off helping Gondor and he's concealing his identity. They don't know that he's the heir of Gondor. Strider and Dunedain, and amongst others. Jesus, the name Yehoshua, which is Jesus, or Jesus in Latin, means Yahweh saves. And then Advent and Christmas were just here. Emmanuel, right? God with us. Jesus is also called the Christ. You may hear your father sometimes saying that name a bit inappropriately. But this is, Jesus Christ is the anointed one, the Messiah. So they both have these names that kind of lend and speak to who they're who they truly are as people. And Aragorn means revered king in Sindarin, which is one of the elven languages outside of Quenya. All right. So both of them are speaking to this kind of what their role is going to be. Both go through the paths of the dead to free a group of people. Essentially, Aragorn goes down there and he holds them to their oaths. And it's really weird in the movie. I don't know why they did this for Return of the King, but that whole green sort of like goo thing that attacks Minas Tirith to cleanse it, bizarre. The book, that does not happen. But in the book, they just take over the ships. And then they're released. And Jesus, after his death, descends into hell. All right? And basically frees those who've been waiting for him. Both are not much to look at. I want to quote a couple things here. I'm going to try to wrap this up. Both are not much to look at. In the movie, Aragorn he's Viggo Mortensen. I mean, if I'm 40, 50 years old and I look half as good as Viggo Mortensen, I'm doing well. All right? Hopefully I still have this mustache. But this is what Bilbo Baggins says to Frodo, try and convince him, like, the starter guy, he looks kind of off, but don't judge a book by its cover. And he said, it's a great poem. All that is gold, and I will use my southern accent, all that is gold does not glitter. Not all who wander are lost. The old that is strong does not wither. Deep roots are not reached by the frost. From the ashes a fire shall be woken. A light from the shadow shall spring. Renewed shall be blade that was broken. The crownless again shall be king. Beautiful. All right, we later learn, Tolkien says, that Aragorn is 6 feet 6 inches tall. So he'd be a good basketball player. Here's what it says about Jesus in Isaiah 53, verse 2. Because we don't have much of a description of what Jesus looks like. In fact, when I say we don't have much of a description, there's not much of a description at all of what he looks like. I'm not sure what details there are. But it says this in Isaiah 53:2, as we look at the Old Testament and the fulfillment of prophecies. It says, he had no beauty or majesty to attract us to him, nothing in his appearance that we should desire him. So he's not going to be beautiful in the sense of physical beauty of the world. And if you look at those great icons of Jesus, they have the kind of human side and they have the divine side. And it's just a beautiful way of thinking about it. But he had no beauty or majesty to attract us to him, nothing in his appearance that we should desire him. All right? Both are healers. This is what it says about Aragorn. This is in Return of the King. He goes into the House of Healing. He's invited by Gandalf, and he goes in as basically looking like Strider, as a ranger, not as a triumphant king. And this is what this nurse says. She says, the hands of the king are the hands of a healer, and so shall the rightful king be known. That's how they'll know who the king is the hands to heal. So Aragorn, proficient with Kingsfoil, which most people think is a weed, and he's able to help Eowyn and Faramir and the others and do great deeds, and people start to know who he is beyond the kind of, worn clothing that he's wearing. This is what it says in Isaiah 35, verses 5 through 6. Then shall the eyes of the blind be opened, and the ears of the deaf unstopped. Then shall the lame man leap as a hart, and the tongue of the dumb shall be free. Jesus is going to be known towards the beginning of his ministry for his great healing. I mean, even today we continue to pray for his healing. We have the sacrament of the anointing of the sick. And since we're reading the Gospel of Mark right now, I just want to read Mark 1, 40 through 42. This is what a man who approaches Jesus says, and then his response. If you will, you can make me clean. Moved with pity, He stretched out his hand and touched him and said to him, I will, be clean. And immediately the leprosy left him. So Jesus too is going to be known by his healing. And then the last thing I want to say about their similarity here, and I'm sure there's many more things, I'm just trying to cover a bunch of them, is that what is it when they die? There's something about them that's different. And this is what it says on page 703 about Aragorn. It says that after he had died, great beauty was revealed in him. Great beauty revealed in him. And it says, gives these 3 different points. It looked like he had all these 3 combined: the grace of his youth, the valor of his manhood, and the wisdom and majesty of his age. It's beautiful. And then here's what it says about Jesus during his transfiguration. His appearance was changed. He was dazzling. He was wearing dazzlingly white. He's revealed in glory. So both of them are revealed in some sort of glorious way upon their death. Jesus, most made manifest through his resurrection. So those are a lot of different things. Aragorn and Jesus, similarities. Jesus is obviously better. I mean, Jesus can save souls. That's a bit more important, so to speak. But both great kings, and both men that I would follow.